So for today's interview, we're joined by Claire OCE, pro player for many, many years. So many, actually, I've lost count. Played mid lane for a long time, Rift Rivals extraordinaire. Also played on my team as a top laner for a while. So Claire, how you been?
I'm chilling. I'm good, thanks.
So what exactly is your job title? Like, are you the league director, LCO observer? Like, what is it?
I'm pretty sure it's just LCO observer, but in the Discord, I don't actually have that role. I'm still just a co-caster, co-streamer, so I guess I'm a co-streamer according to the Discord.
What's it like being sort of that observer guy? Are there any struggles involved? Is the tech complicated? Do you work remotely or in studio? What's the deets?
Yeah, I'm doing work from home completely.
Right.
So when I first started, I swear they threw me in the deep end. They were just like, "Oh, do you want to be an LCO observer?" And I've no idea what the process was. I was as confused as you guys. I have no idea what that would entail, right? So they chucked me into they maybe download all their programs and their voice comms and stuff, and then they're just all right, just sit in and listen and watch the other observers. So that's what I did. And basically what happens on LCO day is that you show up for the pre-show, which is everyone tests all the settings and everything before the stream actually goes live. We hop into a custom game, and I use a virtual machine, or not really a virtual machine, but it's like TeamViewer, right? You connect to someone else's PC from your own.
Right.
And I pretty much operate a PC that's located at the ESL building. And I just load up TR, right? And then I literally just hop into a spectate lobby, and that's all I do. I watch the game from spectate client, and then they have their systems that can replay what I'm watching or record it and whatever. So that's pretty much what observing is. There are multiple observers, so there's a team of 3, and each person has their own role. There's a main observer that is in charge of controlling the camera throughout the whole duration of the game. So everything you see on the broadcast is being controlled by one person. And then there's observer 2, which he's a few seconds ahead in the game than observer 1, and he'll tell observer 1 where to put the camera so that you don't get those troll moments where you miss the action or that kind of thing. And then observer 2 is also in charge of doing replays. So after a fight happens, he'll go back in the spectate VOD, and he'll pause it at the beginning of the fight, and then he'll control the camera throughout the fight in the replay live. So it's not like a recording. Someone's actually controlling the camera during replays.
Wow.
And then third observer, the role is usually flexible, but I've been working on a program called League Director, which allows you to get more cinematic shots, and so that's kind of something that we're looking forward to doing. I'm not sure if I can even disclose this, honestly. I actually don't know what my boundaries are as an LCO observer. I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I am. So for you loyal Matchfix viewers, that's something to look forward to, some League Director cinematic shots.
I didn't realize there would be 3 people. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so usually there's 2 observers. They brought me in because originally one of the other observers was more busy with work. So it's generally 2. There's an extra one just in case. We did use 3 on Super Weeks and for playoffs because those are more important times. But now that it's back to regular season, not really high stakes games, they are looking to use 2. That's why I'm learning League Director, so that we have a reason to bring 3 people in.
I feel like if I was in that position, or if I was doing that job, I would be super scared of making a mistake. Is there sort of a team that helps you bridge those gaps or holes?
I feel like there's a lot of pressure, but at the end of the day, it's none of what you're doing is going to be shown on broadcast unless someone has seen it and thinks, okay, it's good, because the camera's never on you. So you can I was messing around with it the whole day. I didn't expect anything to be shown on broadcast, and then they're like, oh, that shot looks really good, let's use that. So it's kind of high pressure, but I don't think that if you are on the spot, right, you're in the game, you have to get a cinematic shot of a team fight, you just do it, right? And if it doesn't look good, they won't use it. Pretty much, that's how it is.
Joining the lobby as an observer, are there any sort of pre-game chat shenanigans you get to have with the players? Because I remember when I was playing, I used to love bantering with the staff, and that was really fun.
Literally the first day that I was an observer, I typed in the lobby and I was talking to, I can't remember which player it was. I think it was maybe Miru. And as soon as I typed something, I got told off on Discord, hey, don't type in lobby, please. I got added on Discord, so I've never done it again.
Oh, no.
Yes, I'll do like the rules around typing in games, that's for sure.
One thing I did want to ask actually is why exactly did you quit pro, and do you have any intention on coming back?
So obviously, okay, it's actually kind of a long story, but I'll go back even further, right? So 2020, that was a pretty good year for myself and the Chiefs, right? But I think towards the end of the year, I like started playing really bad, and so everyone had like this thought of me in like throughout playoffs and like the few final weeks of regular season. Like I was having a lot of rough games, and I think a lot of people like looked at me in a bad light after that. And I think a reason for that was like I was kind of burnt out at the time. Like I had played for so long, and I'd been trying so hard to win, and like it was just wasn't working out right. So I was like kind of burnt out. And so going into 2021, I was already in the mindset that like I want to take a break here, and I got a lot of offers actually still, despite like poor performance the year before. I actually got a lot of offers from teams to play as mid laner, but my main issue was that I didn't want to live in Sydney again. I didn't want to live in a gaming house. I didn't want to like scrim every day for like 8 hours and then play solo queue after. Like I just wanted to kind of be a normie for a bit, you know. But it ends up being that like I joined a Direwolves and ended up scrimming every day anyway. It's pretty much full on experience anyway.
Sure.
Which like I didn't hate it, you know. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really enjoy playing top lane as much as mid lane. Obviously, like when everyone had seen me as a top 2, top 3 player in my role throughout my entire career, and suddenly I'm like somewhat middle of the pack playing top lane, I feel like everyone just thought, oh, okay, this guy's washed now. But in reality, like I was just shit at top lane, guys. Like, come on, I'm still a good mid laner. Shock is still a good mid laner.
Oh, thank you, man.
If we play LCO, we'll actually take over the LCO by storm. But unfortunately, we're both teamless.
Well, by now you've watched like probably quite a few LCO games. Are there any players or teams that particularly stand out, or ones that you are excited to watch?
I would say like my viewing experience is like a bit different to everyone else's because I like don't actually get to watch the games when I'm observing. Like I have to pay attention to like where people are fighting, like where the HP bars are low. Like I don't actually like pay attention to what's happening, like the macro and all that until it's like mid late game.
Right.
But like most of the LCO teams are boring. I think Chiefs have the most entertaining games because they just stomp everyone and it ends faster. And then like sometimes like the slugfest with the bottom teams when they're like beating middle of the pack or like top end teams, like those are really entertaining. And then they just lose at the last 2 minutes. But like I would say wait until like playoffs because PGG versus Chiefs was like peak Oceanic competitive experience. And I think watching the best players versus each other when they're in their like peak form is the most entertaining thing to look out for.
All right, Claire, you're an opinionated guy. I've seen that on Twitter. So I've got a 2-part question for you. What do you think about Order taking out the title in Split 1, their MSI performance, and how they are doing now?
Sounds more like a 3-part question.
I think it might be a 3-part question.
So last split was a really interesting one. I genuinely believed like with all my heart that like PGG Chiefs was going to be the final. And when Order was like 3-0ing teams in the lower bracket and going like the next game was PGG, I was like, yeah, PGG will just win. They're just the better team. Like Order doesn't look good. But Order beat PGG and then they beat Chiefs. And the whole time I was thinking like, okay, like why is PGG playing so bad? And then in the finals I was thinking like, okay, why is Chiefs playing so bad? So like the whole time Order was like completely stomping these teams. I wasn't thinking like, oh, how like good is Order playing? Like why do they look so bad? And I don't like necessarily think Order's a bad team, right? Like they came 4th place, which is like respectable, right? But in my opinion, Order coming 1st place in Split 1 LCO was a fluke. And I think part of the reason it happened is because they're so like they have a unique playstyle. So their entire like game plan or their win condition revolves around certain players. And in my opinion, that's top and jungle, Kevy and Biopanther. So I think they had a certain playstyle that they had figured out really well, and that the other teams like weren't prepared to face or like didn't draft well against. Like I remember like Kevy played like 5 Graves games or something in playoffs. Like it was an insane amount of Graves games that he was just completely 1v9ing on, and he kept getting it. So I feel like the teams weren't prepared to verse that kind of style. I feel like going into semi-finals for PGG and grand finals for Chiefs, these two teams were preparing to verse each other. These two teams were like, okay, so PGG is very good at skirmishing, very good at team fighting. Like Praetus, it positions really well in team fights. Like Balkan puts a lot of pressure on. And then like you see the exact same play style from Chiefs. Like Chiefs played the exact same way, you know, and Order just coming in and sweeping everyone was like really surprising in my opinion. And so that said, like going into MSI, I didn't know what to expect because I always had the thought at the back of my head like Order looks like not as good of a team as the other teams, right? But they won, right? So like maybe they have some sort of surprise factor that will like take these teams at MSI like by surprise, right? And then they showed up at MSI. They looked okay for the first 2 games, and then after that, I actually stopped watching Order games because I couldn't handle it anymore. But yeah, going into now Split 2, they are a completely different team, so they're not even comparable anymore. I think your main player that your entire team and your entire win con is focused around isn't there anymore. You have a new player, so they have to completely reinvent themselves, and I just consider it a completely different team now. I don't think you can compare them anymore.
I guess following on from that, there's also been a lot of discussion or talk around Peace with their roster changes in Split 2. Do you have any thoughts on their performance so far, or I guess the expectations surrounding them for the split?
Yeah, so Peace, I think is an interesting team to talk about because I believe in Split 1, like they were the most clean team in the LCO for a long time. For the entire first half of Split 1, I believe they were the best team. And I think that revolves around their mid 2v2. So Appy and Lisa, they were the best mid jungle 2v2 for like almost an entire regular season. And just watching the way they played the 2v2, like they would first like put pressure on mid, they would pick winning 2v2 matchups into the enemy team. They would create a gaping hole of pressure in mid lane, like through like jungle hover, through superior laning and trading from Appy, and then they would translate that pressure to their side lanes and just blow up a game like really early. And they did it consistently for like 10 games in a row, and it was actually like I thought they were gonna like win the split, right? But then like I actually don't know what happens, but somewhere in like the last third of the split, they just started griefing every game. Like they picked Ignite, Kindred top. They just like did all this random troll like stuff, and then come playoffs, like you just know, like I swear to God, what was it? It was Order versus Peace. Like they just drafted the most meme stuff, like Sejuani top. Like I actually did not know what I was watching, and it looked like they had given up. And like I'll do a bit of leakage, right? I had heard from some sources that they had given up, and that's the reason for their bad play. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I was like, okay, coming to Split 2, like upgrade your bot lane, right? Like I still think Cheon was an insane player, but you know it's Violet. You can't like Violet is a very very good player, so you can't like just overlook him. So like technically they're upgraded, right? And then I watched their games, and I'm just like, okay, Tien is dying to a jungle gek or getting solo killed another game 3 times. Happy's farming, getting good trades, but like they're not making anything happen with it. Lisa's kind of invisible, and then Guncrab is obviously new to the role and is flashing forward on Lulu and like not accomplishing anything. And then Violet is going 12 CS per minute, carrying late game. And I just feel like they aren't a cohesive unit anymore. They haven't been for a long time, and the reason they were winning is because they were that, you know, they were a cohesive unit. They played very smart. They had good early game macro, and it just doesn't exist anymore. So
right,
I'm interested to see how it evolves because I think Violet has that carry factor, but I'm just not sure about Guncrab as a support. I think Shock, you said that you believe Guncrab could be a top 2 support player, right? Is that true? I think you can say that about any player.
Because support's easy, or what?
Milk?
Yes, so support in this region is very, let's say, like not very stacked. So you can be a top 2 support player, but like the big thing is like, in my opinion, you don't really have anything to like base Guncrab's support performance off of. Like, obviously, like we experimented with it last year on Direwolves, but I personally didn't think that I saw something that would make me think like, okay, definitely top 2 at the end of the split.
Oh, okay.
Like, apart
I'm being
from, like,
called out. I'm being called out.
No, but like I don't disagree with your statement, right? Because I think you can say that about any player. You know what I'm saying?
Like they could
you can say
be
that
top
any
2,
player has,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Guncrab could be top 2, but I haven't actually like seen something that makes me like say, okay, definitely top 2. You know?
Okay, fair enough.
But that said, like, you know, it could happen. And Violet again is a very good player. I think Appy is also a very good mid laner. I just need to see like that synergy between Appy and Lisa. I think the meta is a bit different now though. And then like Tien needs to stop dying 3 times in 5 minutes every game.
Yeah, I think it is sort of hard for the mid. I don't know, because like the mid jungle champions have like a lot of agency, I feel like, but it's also like really hard to gank mid. Like a lot of the champs can definitely roam, like, you know, Aries, Gallios, Lissandras, but they're also all really hard to gank. And I wonder if that's like where that comes from. Like they needed to get a gank mid before they went to sides. I'm not really sure.
Well, Pace has been drafting LeBlanc still, and even when they drafted it, it didn't do anything, in my opinion. Like I think Appy had like 2-0-0-0 games for like 15 minutes, right? So like you can pick like setup champions. It's already against the meta. Like as you can see, like a lot of the meta is scaling or like Twisted Fate, Galio kind of champions. And you're picking against the meta as well as like not getting anything for it, you know? So I think that's kind of like the issue with their mid jungle right now.
Because you talked about Peace like kind of losing their spark in split one. Do you think that was a result of them like improving at a slower rate, or do you think that was they actually got like actively worse as the split went on?
It's always hard to say if someone got worse or if everyone else just got better. I think for sure all the other teams got better, but like I can't tell if it's like they're playing worse because the other teams are like doing things better, or like if they're just like the drafts, right? You have to look at the drafts first. Like they're drafting a lot of strange experimental things.
Yeah.
And then they just like lane subpar. Like that's all I can say. Like they had a bunch of games where they just started laning subpar and like not doing anything proactive, and I think it's a bit of both, I guess. The final answer is that I think they got a bit worse, and then all the other teams improved at a faster rate.
And do you think that's kind of carried over to split two as well? Like they haven't sort of fixed the holes that they had in split one?
Yeah, again, I think the team is kind of completely different now, because I think when you bring Violet in, your team kind of becomes the Violet show. He is a main carry, a star player. So I think the teams are kind of they're comparable, right? Because you still have like the core, which was Appy and Lisa, but now you have a quote unquote upgraded bot lane. It's just that you need a good balance when you're building a team, right? You need players who use resources well, and then players who like don't need resources to perform, right? I think Violet is a high resource player. He spent the entire of 2021 taking resources and carrying with them. And then you look at 2022 P split 2, right? Violet, high resource player, and Tien, high resource player, right? So you have two side laners that require a lot of attention to perform at their best. And then you have a mid jungle 2v2 that work the best when they're together and playing with each other, right? So I think that causes a lot of issues and like inability to perform well. That's my opinion on P split 2.
All right, Claire, before I let you go back to your Twitch stream on Twitch TV/ClaireOCE, I wanted to ask you, do you have any funny or, you know, degenerate gaming house stories to share with the boys?
Okay, well, being in gaming houses for like 4 years, there's an absolute plethora of stories. Let me just think of the last time I was in a gaming house. So 2020 Chiefs. Okay, this is like a really random one that I remember, but someone had put their wet clothes from the washing machine on the clothesline, and it was still wet, right? And it was drying. And then I think it was a manager actually, and then a player did their laundry as well. And then he just started collecting the clothes that were on the line that were still wet, and he piled them up and put them in a basket, and then put his own clothes on the line.
Dude, that's so alpha.
And apparently, like, okay, the player who did that was like, oh, I thought they were dry already. But then like the manager guy was like, oh nah, like, dude, it's still wet, bro. Like, that was a bit interesting gamer move.
Can you call out their names?
Like, obviously, like every gaming house. I don't know if I should. I don't know if I should.
I feel like they deserve to be publicly
there was
shamed.
also another incident. Okay. Actually, I'll just say it. All these stories are going to be of the same player, but I just think he's the funniest, and he like caused a lot of issues. But
Okay.
So he like turned into a degen for like 2 weeks, right? This was after the split was over, and it was just okay. There was me, this player, and then like two like Chiefs like manager kind of people in the house, and he like turned nocturnal, right? So he was awake at like midnight until like early AM, right? Or like late AM, sorry. And so every night at like 4 a.m., he would like play games with his friends in Discord, and he would just start laughing and screaming at the top of his lungs at 4 a.m. And he did that for like 4 or 5 days straight. And then eventually it reached a point where our neighbor like knocked on our front door at like 8 a.m. in the morning, and he started raging to Seal. So Seal lives next to the front door. Like his room is right next to the front door. Seal's coach from Chiefs 2020. Now rogue coach, so he's a big shot now. But anyway, he like answered the door, and then our neighbor was like full complaint, like what the fuck are you screaming about at 4 a.m.? Like, do you know people like have work? Do you know people are asleep at 4 a.m.? Like, why are you screaming about your game at 4 a.m.? He was actually raging. Like that was an interesting experience. And also like, I'm not gonna lie, like I was trying to sleep at that time too, and I could hear laughing and screaming at 4 a.m. every night. So it was really annoying for me too. But yeah, I didn't complain about it. But yeah, that was an interesting gamer story. The final one that I can remember from 2020, like there's a lot. The final one that I'm going to speak about for today.
For today.
So this was during the same time period as well. And the Chiefs, like the staff that we were living with, like they enjoyed going to Woolies, all right? They would buy a couple of $4 microwave meals and they would chuck them in the refrigerator, right?
Classic.
And then for some reason, this player like started taking those microwave meals, heating them up, and then eating them himself, right? Even though he didn't pay for them, like they were literally paid out of the pockets of the staff, and like the staff put them in the fridge, and he just started eating a bunch of them. And then like it got to the point where one day, like I noticed it happening. I was like, I'm just not gonna say anything. And then it reached a point where I got confronted via Facebook DMs, and also Seal came out and talked to me. It was like, you guys need to stop eating the meals that are in the fridge. They're not communal. They're paid for by X and Y. Like, stop doing that. And I was like, dude, I literally didn't do that. And so yeah, that was funny. I got confronted for doing something that I didn't do, but I watched happen. So I guess I was a bystander, and I'm guilty anyway.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Claire, and providing us your very valuable insight. Do you have any streams you want to plug before you go?
Actually, no, I do. Twitch.tv/shock.
That's cute.
He's a coaching phenom. He's on the rise on YouTube. Almost 10,000 subscribers. 10,000 sub special coming up soon, guys. Look forward to it. I believe he's gonna do something crazy on 10K, like some absolute debauchery. So look forward to that.